Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today on my channel, I have Shana Burton. Please welcome Shana.
Hello.
And,
Thank you for having me.
and this is a segment called All About Your Books. So, Shana, take it away.
All right. And again, thank you for having me and happy quarantine. I don't even know what day we're in, so I can't even
I
say
can
like happy Monday, Tuesday, whatever. Just happy quarantine, child. All right. I am the author of several books. I have been published since about 2007, I believe. My first book was Suddenly Single, and on to my most recent book, which is Kiss and Tell.
Mhm.
And it came out yesterday, not yesterday, came out last week, maybe the week before, like March 19th, around that time.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the books that I want to talk to your listeners to talk to them about today and read a little snippet from it. Just to give a bit of background from the book. They're really three main characters. My protagonist is named Alexis. She's an entrepreneur, a natural hair goddess. She has a business where she creates natural hair products, and it is set initially in Charlotte, North Carolina. But when the story opens, we see her making a mad dash from Charlotte on her way to Bald Head Island. So even at the beginning, you know she's running from something. You don't know what she's running from or why. And she suddenly can't come into a lot of money from selling her hair, natural hair business, and that's the money she uses to make her escape. And once she gets to Bald Head Island, even though that's where she came to try to escape and start a drama-free life, it's kind of like the drama takes on a new turn at that point. Now, now while she is there, she does manage to move into a really nice neighborhood and happens to move in next door to a former actor, Ron Carter, who was on a big show back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So he was a teen heartthrob. So she definitely remembers him from his days on television on Tough Love. That was his show. And through a series of events, they start to date and start to fall in love. Now, because she is, hooking up with her childhood crush, she's just kind of all heads over heels and didn't really do her due diligence as far as investigating him like you should, especially with somebody you don't know. She's just kind of going on falling in love with the character he played on TV. But the person he is in real life definitely has some secrets that she's not aware of. And this is the portion I'm going to read for you all today. This is from their first date, where you start to kind of get an inkling of what might be going on with him. Okay. All right. So they're out to dinner and talking. And she's asking kind of like, how did he get to this point where he is in his life? And things he's had to overcome. And he says, at first, being in love got me through. Thankfully, I had someone who understood what I was going through and didn't mind providing the love and support that I needed. After a while, though, not even my relationship was enough. What I needed couldn't be found in a person because what I needed most at that point in my life was God. She smiled and nodded. How did you come to that conclusion? It's easy when you find yourself at rock bottom. I think I needed that to happen. Otherwise, I would have found myself finding other superficial ways to deal with my issues. There's so many distractions in Hollywood. It's easy to lose yourself and lose sight of what's important. And besides, no matter how far you go, there's always someone waiting around with a fishing pole, ready to hook. I'm sorry. So always somebody waiting around with a fishing pole and a hook, ready to drive your past back out. Once the waiter left and after returning to their Oh, okay, wait a minute. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Once the waiter left after returning to their drinks and coffee orders, Alexis picked up the conversation where they left off. Since we're talking about mistakes, what's the secret Terrence is always harping about? Rome's muscles clenched. What secret? The deep, dark secret about you. There's no secret, Lex. Ron hoped Alexis didn't notice that his eyes dodged hers. Then what is it that you don't want me to know that Terrence is itching to tell me? She was being more persistent than usual. Ron became pensive. He would have to lie, or at the very least, evade. He hoped that this line of questioning wouldn't take him to a place where he didn't want to end up. Terrence knows I've made a lot of questionable decisions back in the day and delights in thinking he has one over on me. He's always felt like he was standing in my shadow, even when we were kids. My success hasn't been easy for him. If thinking he has some secret that I'm hiding helps him to sleep better at night, so be it. But he's been successful in his own right. Why is he tripping? T believes in working hard to earn everything you get. He thinks I've had it way too easy and that everything has been handed to me, including you. He resents that. Well, in this case, he's sort of right. Terrence pursued me. You just swooped in and swept me off my feet. You're acting like I chose you. We chose each other. Even if I hadn't come along, Terrence still wouldn't have been the one for you. You can't force something that isn't there any more than you can deny something that is. Alexis challenged him. Are you saying we have no control over the people we fall in love with? I don't think we do. Look at us. I never planned to fall for you. It was fate. She shook her head. I disagree. We could have stopped it from happening if we wanted to. How? We could have avoided each other or put mind over matter. We didn't have to act on our feelings. He sat back and observed her with skepticism. Are you saying that you've never fallen for someone you didn't expect to be attracted to? No, not really. Never? No. The wheels in his mind began churning. He needed to determine where she stood on certain issues. Her response could be the difference between farewell and forever. After a lingering pause, Rome asked, so you don't think you could fall for, let's say, a woman? She scoffed. Are you serious right now? I'm very serious. Do you think it's inconceivable that there could be a woman out there who could love and understand you in a way no one else can? It's not inconceivable, she replied slowly, but I can't see it happening. I like men. I'm team eggplant all day, every day. She leaned in and dropped to a hushed voice. Besides, what can a woman do for me that a man can't? I'm not talking about sex. I mean something deeper, more intimate. It can be something as innocent as striking up a conversation with someone while waiting for coffee, and you realize that you connect with that person. The waiter set a healthy slice of key lime pie down in front of Rome and a lava cake a la mode in front of Alexis before disappearing again. I don't care how good the conversation is or how great the woman is. I'm not going lesbian on her. Maybe, maybe not. All I'm saying is that you never know who you're going to love. It might not always be the people that we're expected to fall for. Yeah, but I draw the line at that person being a female. What about you? Do you think you could fall in love with a man? Ron sank his fork down into the pie, thinking of his own life and his former lovers. So we'll leave that right there for your readers to try
Why?
to figure out what might be going on.
Yeah, I'm like, my wheels are turning. Okay.
But in essence, that book is true, really about, how well do we know people. And I've been married. I was married for about 10 years, and we had been together probably 12 all total. And even during all that time, there were things that I, to this day don't know about him. And you can spend a lifetime with another person, eating with them every day, shower, sex, all that. And that does not mean that you can ever 100% really know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of what the crux of the book is about, is, how well do we know the people that we're kissing. All right. So that is that book. You have any questions about it? You want me to go on?
Go on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Like I said, I have 10 books. And Kiss and Tell is book number 10. But the books that I will be sharing are from my Floral Series. these have been, you know, as an author, I try not to have favorites, but I have favorites. These are my babies. And I like all the books, but I especially like the dynamic of relationships and friendships with women.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a big fan of sort of ensemble shows with friends, like you know, Living Single, Sex and the City, Girlfriends, Golden Girls, um, any shows that explores that sisterhood between women. I think that we have I love my man, but I also have a bond with my friends and my sorors that's just unmatched. And so I started the Floral series. It centers around um, four friends, or four and a half. It's one is the sister of one of the friends, and she pops up, and her storyline is intertwined with theirs quite frequently. But this is all from the Floral series, and this camera is like messing with my head. Okay, these are from the Floral series,
Mm-hmm.
and the first book in the series is Flaws and All,
Mm-hmm.
and this one was actually nominated for Best Fiction for a Georgia Book of the Year award, and um, has been a very good seller for me. It was on the bestsellers list about 36 weeks, and this is the book that jumps everything off with the Floral series. But it opens with this book, and you're introduced to the four core members of the friendship, which are Lawson, Sullivan, Keena, Angel, and Reggie. And Reggie is Lawson's little sister. Lawson is, I guess, sort of the mother of the group. She's the one who's really headstrong, um, kind of bossy, kind of rigid in her thinking, even though she probably at the end of the day, she is the one who's most loyal, but she's definitely sort of the mother hen of the group. And because she's so rigid in her thinking and, you know, very type A, and thinks things are supposed to be one way, very black and white, that often causes clashes with her other friends. And the thing with her is she can be very judgmental to other people, but then is very blind to her own faults. But she's still a good friend. And then for this particular book, she's a single mother who um, discovers her child's father. She met him when she was 16. It was a one night stand, and hadn't seen him since then. And then they end up working together. And so her struggle with the book is trying to, you know, dealing with him, whether or not to tell him about their child, and developing that relationship. The other friend is Sullivan Webb. She's a first lady of a church that they all attend. She's a very non-traditional first lady. She has a very colorful past, and really kind of married her husband for money because he is a mega church, and he's older, and so she is still, and she's in her sexual prime and peak, and often explores that side of herself. So the girls have to definitely try to keep her reined in, but one of her indiscretions gets out, and it really takes a toll on her marriage and her husband's church. Um, Angel is sort of the I guess the one in the middle for all the friends. She's, you know, she's still fun, not quite as wild as Sullivan, not quite as rigid as Lawson, but she's kind of right there in the middle. But her husband left her some years ago, and she ends up having to be a caretaker to the woman that he left her for. And so you kind of see that dynamic between not only her and her ex-husband, but her having to care for the woman that he left her for. And Keena is the fourth member of the squad. She is overweight, very self-conscious, no self-esteem, and she's actually in an abusive marriage. And so the friends they work to try to, I got a little distracted because my son walked in making a little bit of noise. Okay, but so they try to work with her and be with her during that whole part of her life. So that's the core group. And so the first one, you get to meet all of them as they are going through that trial, those trials in particular. This follow-up to that is Flawless. And in this book, you get a little deeper into the friendship and in the relationships they have with people outside of that. Reginelle, who is Lawson's sister, has a bigger role in this book. She starts dating Mark, who is Lawson's baby's daddy, which is messy in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Sullivan is starting to reap the consequences of her kind of being out there and cheating on her husband when she gets pregnant and discovers that her husband is now impotent. So there's really no way to kind of put that baby on anybody else. And Keena has gotten away from her husband. She gets away from him in the first book, and she has taken up with a woman in this book, and just her really trying to deal with her husband not being there. She's just really in a confused phase and kind of turns to this woman during her time of confusion. And Angel has also, her and her ex-husband are trying to forge a new relationship after his wife dies. They try to get back together, and that kind of ends in disaster. But what holds them together through all of that, they're still friends, and that core friendship still keeps them all together. And oh, that's the fourth. The third book is Flawfully Wedded Wives in that series. And it picks up from where the second book leaves off. The second one really ends on a cliffhanger. And so this kind of ties those loose ends together and kind of brings in some things from the past that help to explain why the women are the way they are. Like you definitely get to see why Sullivan acts the way she acts, and you just get to kind of see a deeper side to all of the ladies. And the final book, Flabulous, is where you really see their friendships tested. And like I said, through all their drama prior to that, they've always had each other. But now there's another person that kind of infiltrates the group, and that dynamic changes everything. And I mean, it's just like any other friendship, at a certain point, you do realize you have maybe outgrown some people, and that everybody can't hold the same place in your life that they've always held. So that one is a little darker. There's some deaths and other things of that nature. It's still a great book. It's probably just a little darker than the other ones.
Okay. You got any more?
Yes. Okay. I thought you just wanted to say yes. All right. All right. This one is First Comes Love. This is just like a fun romantic read, but this one was also actually this was a Georgia Book of the Year nominee too. But it's best friends who
Hold it
get,
up again.
you see
Okay.
it.
Okay. Yes. Now I can see it. Yeah.
All right. Best friends who get drunk and they get dumped on the same day, and they go to Vegas and wake up get married during their drunken state. And the plan is to just let's go on and get this annulled. We were under the influence, but they kind of challenge each other to see if they can make it work. And this book came about, so I have a very close close male friend, and one day we were talking, and he was just like, me and you should get married, because we would approach it rationally, because we're friends, so we wouldn't be lying to each other, all that stuff that you deal with a partner. Those wouldn't be issues for us because we're such good friends. And that's really what triggered the storyline in my head. And but as I was writing it, it really showed me some things that I can tolerate from you as my friend that I absolutely could not tolerate from you as my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa for the husband in the book. And so it really kind of explores, because they genuinely love each other, but they've been best friends. But, you know, does love mean I need to hold on and fight for this, or does love mean, okay, I'm showing more love by letting it go? So that's sort of the crux of that story. This next one, this was my fourth book, Cat Chasing. This one was one that kind of stemmed out of my divorce. Once I got divorced and started trying to date again, one of my exes decided he was going to be my dating coach. And he would give me all kind of just like tips and secrets that I had no idea men were doing. And so that was just those were such interesting conversations that I wanted to put that into this book. And so I modeled the character Jamal, who's the male lead, modeled him after my ex-boyfriend and all the sort of the shenanigans that he does in his single dating life. And my protagonist, Kat, she's a non-traditional character. You know, a lot of times when we're writing it, or even in TV and movies, you know, the lead female is perfect, beautiful, got money and smart, and she's those things too, but she is very much on the plus side. And so for him, who's so superficial, to somebody like her is just would not even register on who he would be interested in. But you know, she really challenges not only his notions of what beauty is, but kind of matures him past his sort of just scripted way that he deals with women. And so at this point, you know, they're really kind of exploring, one, do opposites really attract? Yeah. And if men, no matter how great the woman is, can a man really just be a one woman man if he has lots of options out there? And on to Suddenly Single. Suddenly Single was actually my first book. And the premise behind that one is the lead character, Vashti, she gets stood up on her wedding day. And after that jilting at the altar, her best friend, because she goes into like a depression, and her best friend is like, look, if you can fall in love within the next year, I'll pay for you to have your dream wedding. So that was really to kind of spur her back into dating and getting her out that rut. So she starts back dating, and she has to kiss a lot of frogs and goes from one bad relationship to another. Unfortunately, this one was totally based on my real life and dating at that time. So she has to kiss a lot of frogs to try to find, you know, Mr. Right, but ends up finding herself during that process. So, you know, once you find yourself, you're a little less thirsty, and makes finding that man that can kind of take the back burner. And this is my next to last book. This is the last book I released prior to Kiss and Tell. And this is Don't Make Me Wait. Mm-hmm. And this is about a woman who is essentially a serial dater. And she meets somebody who is really the opposite for the type of guy she usually goes for. He's sweet and quiet and spiritual, and she's sort of a wild child. And another case where you're kind of looking at whether or not opposites attract. And while she does care about him, she still has a side to her that's missing that excitement and wildlife that she's become accustomed to. And she finds that in a younger guy who she starts to date, while forgetting to tell the boyfriend that she has started this other relationship. So she really finds herself caught between these two men, the one man who nurtures that wild, crazy side of her, and the other man who's the total opposite, and just really trying to figure out which way to go in that. And the last book is a memoir, and it's a Kindle book, and it is Note to Self, Diary of a Divorcee, that I wrote following my divorce. I journal a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And after I got divorced, I was starting to date, and I would tell my publicist about all these disaster dates I was going on, and she was like, "You need to be writing this down, and try to go on a date a week and write about it." And so I'll be writing, go on a date, write about these horrible dates, and I was not going to put it out because this is going to come straight out of like my journals, and I didn't feel comfortable with exposing myself like that. But she ended up dying, and I knew how much she wanted me to put that out. So I went ahead and finished it, and got it, typeset and everything, and put that one out there as a way to honor her. But if you are going through a breakup or a divorce, or just having a horrible time dating, that's a good book to go to make you feel better about your life, because mine was quite disastrous at that time.
And it's called Note to Self, and you said it's on ebook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Note to Self, Diary of a Divorcee.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's all your books?
that's all of my books.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
What has influenced you most as an author?
Just life. So a lot of my books come from
Mhm.
situations I'm in, conversations I'm having. I can find inspiration from something small, so just virtually anything. And I think that's how most writers are. You can pull a story out of thin air almost. It does not take much. Just takes a spark. I can pass somebody on the street and can come up with a whole little story about them. Even with the first book, Suddenly Single, I was cleaning up the den, and Ebony magazine was open, and on the spread was something what to do during the holidays when you're suddenly single, something like that. But the word "suddenly single" just popped out at me, and from that moment, the story started forming in my head. So my motivation is just life.
Oh, okay. What was the hardest part of writing your author bio?
Just being that transparent with people, because while the disaster dates were funny, but I was still very much going through a divorce,
Mhm.
still making that adjustment, still heartbroken over that. So really just putting myself out there, being that transparent, letting people know how stupid I had been at times. And with me, for the most part, my books are Christian fiction. I mean, they struggle Christians, but they still Christians. So you see a side to me that was not always Christiany, and so even putting myself out in that realm was different. And I didn't. And my publishing company was with Urban Christian. I didn't even try to put that through them because I knew that it would not make the cut as far as what the standards would be to be considered Christian fiction. So just really having to put myself out there in that way was tough.
What are two of your favorite covers of all time?
I really like my Kiss and Tell cover. Um, these are actually two friends of mine. One is I don't know if you can see how clearly you can see it. The guy is actually an ex-boyfriend who's a really good friend, and the female is she's like my little sister to me. Um, she's a great girl. So just being able to have my friends on the cover, and my cousin did the photography for it, and another friend did the font and the artwork. So that was great to just be able to have that autonomy to use my friends and in that way. And also with Flawfully Wedded Wives, these are also my friends, and I was just so thankful to have a publishing company that was flexible. They sent me some sample covers that I absolutely hated, just hated, and I was like, can I just take the picture myself? And they went, okay, we'll let you do it yourself. So, I have a cousin who's a photographer. I just kind of like rounded up my friends, and it was a fun shoot. And like I said, again, it helps when you can have people that you know on the cover. It's like with my cover for Cat Chasing, I've seen that guy, and that was when a publishing company did. He's been on like at least 3 other books. So, you know, he gets around, and it's nothing against him. He's a good looking guy. So I guess a lot of people use him for book models, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was good to be able to use people I know wouldn't show up on other people's books. So that was good too.
How did you come up with the character names?
A lot of times they're symbolic. Like the first one was Suddenly Single. The main character's name is Vashti Hunter. If you know Vashti from the Bible, she was a queen who the king exiled when she did not do what he wanted her to do. And so I really was playing on that for the first name. And Hunter, she is on the hunt looking for a man. So for her name, it was quite symbolic. For the ladies in Flaws and All, their names also have a sort of a play on whatever they're going through as well, like Sullivan Webb. She's constantly caught up in her web of lies. So I kind of play with that. And then for the third book, you see why her first name is Sullivan. It's actually the last name of her father, who is married. And so the mother, since she couldn't use his last name because he had a family and a wife, she used his first name to be the daughter's, well, uses his last name to be the daughter's first name. So, you know, it just really kind of depends on what the story is and what I'm trying to do with that character. And sometimes it's just alpha friends. Like for First Comes Love, the lead person's name is Bernard Phillips. That's because the guy who gave me the idea, first name is Philip, middle name is Bernard. So it just depends on what's going on with
Okay.
the book. Mm-hmm.
What did you learn when writing, I'm going to say, Note to Self?
Oh, I learned a lot. I've learned that self-love is key, and you know, you got to love yourself before anybody else. And I know that sounds cliche, and really what I've learned as far as what that meant for me at that time, I had been with my ex-husband since I was like 20, 21, and I was 33 when we got a divorce, 33, 34. So I was basically a kid when we got together. And we both in undergrad. So the person who I was at 21 was not the person who I was at 34. And I had to get to know Shana outside of being wife, outside of being mother, outside of being connected to him. I needed to get to know who I am now and fall in love with that person and really kind of see what do I want, what do I not like. Because I had been out the dating game, you know, 12, 13 years. And dating had changed so much from the 90s to 2000s. And, you know, we didn't really have online dating. And it was just so many things that had changed very quickly during that time. And I had changed from that part. I had, you know, now 2 kids in, I'm in my profession, you know, got some degrees, and so I had changed a lot. And so really I needed, so it taught me that that each relationship, you come out different. Even if it's a short relationship, if it's impactful, you're gonna come out different, and you have to give yourself to get to know who you are now, as opposed to, you know, the person you were going into it. And so that really forced me to examine and look at who I am now.
What is more important, plot or characters?
I'm gonna say characters, just because so many of my readers gravitate to the characters, and I hear all the time, oh, she acts just like me, or they find themselves in those characters. Now the characters get themselves in situations that nobody's probably realistically going to be in, but who they are at the core, that's who the readers are attracted to. So I'm going to say the characters, because that's the part that's going to resonate. And you have a great plot, but I don't connect with the characters, then it doesn't matter. So, but I think once people have that connection with a character and they care what happens with a character, I've had them to say, look, I was praying for this character, so when you get to the point where you are praying for a character, then you know that character has connected with people. And as a writer, that's what you want.
Mm-hmm. Is there a message in your books that you would hope readers would grasp?
For all of my books, there's always a message of redemption. My characters are always so just screwed up in a variety of ways. And so redemption, forgiveness, those are always big themes for me. So if they read a book and they are able to come out of it seeing something from a different perspective, or being able to see it from somebody else's point of view. A lot of times, we're always the hero in our own stories, but sometimes we're the villain, and we have to kind of be able to look at it from both ends. And so being able to look at something, look at the whole picture, and consider people's motivations. I'm a very big why person. I can deal with you depending on what you have done. What matters to me more than what you've done is why you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, just getting into that, most people are not intentionally evil. Most people do not try to hurt you. There's a reason behind that. And once you know the reason, it makes it easier to forgive and give that person another chance. So that redemption and forgiveness you're going to see that throughout all of my books.
Okay. Where can readers find you and your books?
Oh, they can find me very much so on social media, on Facebook. I have a couple of Facebook pages. One is Shana Burton Author. One is Shana Johnson Burton. One is Kissing and Telling with Shana Burton Readers. And I'm also on Instagram under Shana B319, and on Twitter, Shana J Burton. Uh, I'm so negligent on Twitter. Don't so I really hesitate to even put that out there, but I am on there. And by email at shana.j.burton@gmail.com, or through my website, which is shanaburtonbooks.wixsite.com. So I'm very easy to find, and so are my books. Of course, the easiest and quickest way is going to be Amazon, but they're still in any major bookstore chain, or a lot of our independent sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And just pretty much anywhere you stick a Shana Burton book title, or just my name, author, on Google, you're gonna find where you can get a book.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
No, just want everybody to stay safe and stay healthy. And I definitely want to thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm always happy to talk about my books and to introduce the books to new faces and new readers. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Y'all heard it from Shana Burton. Her books are all on Amazon, or you can reach her at her website. Again, if all minds are clear, this is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye,
Happy
y'all.
reading.